Before we get started, RuPaul, anything you want to discuss? Any questions or concerns?
Yeah, you call me Ru.
Okay.
Even though my name is RuPaul, I like friends to call me Ru. Actually, I resent people who have 4 syllables for their name.
Yeah, my son has 4 syllables, Alexander.
Alexander. Yeah. But you can call him Al. That's easy.
Mostly what we call him is Stinky.
Stinky works. I love Stinky. I call a lot of strangers who I've never met before. I say, hey, Stinky. It really throws them off their game.
RuPaul, who prefers to be called Ru, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Congratulations on your new book.
Thank you.
I'm kind of torn because I want to ask you about the title, but that seems like such a lame way to begin. But here I am asking you about the title. You've called it Beautiful Nonsense. Can you just say more about that?
Well, it was beautiful nonsense when I heard it the first time because I attributed a lot of deep meaning to it when I heard it the first time. And as time went on, I realized in hindsight that it was gibberish, that what my friend was telling me about the House of Hidden Meanings. He told me that he's Libra, and he told me that Libra represents the 12th house of hidden meanings for a Scorpio like myself. And I went, oh, wow, that's really deep. And of course, that's not true, but it stuck with me, that term, House of Hidden Meanings, because I've always loved mysteries. I've always loved to look underneath the surface of an issue and figure out what's actually going on here. I love the title, and so I decided to call the book that because so much of my life has been about uncovering the truth behind what lies beneath.
Okay, so that actually brings me to a question that I feel less sheepish about, because there are 2 themes that play right off of what you just said, seeing beneath the surface. There are 2 themes that just course right through the book. One is the idea that we're all performing, and the other is your desire to experience something real, to pierce the veil in some ways. And I'm interested in exploring like the connection, if there is any, between these 2 themes. But let me just start with performance. You have said we're born naked and the rest is drag, which is a nugget of pure brilliance, in my opinion. And then very early in the book, you start talking about this issue of performance in relationship to, it starts in relationship to your love for television. And I'm just going to read a quote to you from you, back to you, and get you to sort of unpack it on the backside. I love television. Television to me represented the platonic ideal of reality. First of all, there was a moral code, the good guys vanquishing the bad guys, good triumphing over evil. But even more crucially, the fact that it was all performance was acknowledged. We knew these were actors playing roles because their names appeared in the credits. In the real world, everyone played parts too, but nobody talked about it.
And through my journeys as a seeker, all roads lead to the fact that we are an extension of the power that created the universe, experiencing humanity. And it's not to be taken too seriously, and it's not to be really deeply hurt by it, because it is so fast. It goes by so fast. Experience this life and then move on, because is it the Alan Watts thing where he says, imagine if you could decide what you would dream each night, because when you wake up in the morning, you would be back to your old self and everything would be absolutely fine. But during that excursion in dream time, you would experience all this weirdness, good, bad, indifferent, ugly, weird, lovely, all that stuff. And he says, that's really what we're doing. So we are, for lack of a better term, God experiencing humanity, and it's a performance. It's temporary, like a costume.
What I'm interested in is you seem to love to play with performance, but you're also really interested in what's real beneath it. Is there a contradiction there? Do they work well?
There is. I mean, real, I mean, to actually see the mechanics of it. You know, there is the fantasy that, you know, let's talk about this in terms of what love is. Like, there is the romantic idea of love, which has to do with, you know, it's this swooning and this feeling of ecstasy. But when you really break that down, it is a chemical reaction that happens in your body. And it's actually not the kind of love that is sustainable. It is something that's fleeting. We learn over the course of a lifetime that real love has to do with respect and trust and kindness, all of these other things that really bear no resemblance to the romantic love that Nancy Meyers makes movies about and Diane Warren writes songs about. You know, real love is, oh my God, if you've been in a relationship for a long time, it's like, oh, it's got all these other things attached to it. That they don't make movies about that part. You know, when you look at the long tail of it, it's like, oh, that's really what love is. That's really what love is. So that kind of thing. So yeah, it's a contradiction looking for the real. Real is probably the wrong word. It's looking at a situation with X-ray eyes, with the knowledge of the Google Earth picture where you go, oh, I see how that's in relation to this over here. You know what I'm saying, Dan Harris?
I think I do. You start with the notion that you, Ru, like to search for the hidden meanings in this very interesting, mysterious existence in which we all find ourselves. And on the one hand, you really latch on to this idea of performance and play. And the other hand, there is this consistent, insistent, no bullshit desire to get in touch with something true, capital T.
Yeah, absolutely. And both can exist at the same time, Dan. That's what's so beautiful about this whole thing is that it's not just one or the other. It both coexist at the same time. And that's the real secret of what we're doing here, that we can have both the fantasy and the stripped away reality, if you will, of what's going on.
Early in your life, in the book, you talk about drugs as a way to kind of strip away some of the illusion. Can you say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I come from a very tumultuous household. My parents were insane. I was very sensitive, and I watched television, and I loved music. I love all of the beauty of things. And then when I was 10 years old, I was introduced to smoking weed, you know, which alleviated some of the pressure to adhere and to get involved with the mishigas that was going around me, or trying to make sense of it. You know, it alleviated some of the pressure of trying to figure out, how do I deal with this? And you know, and I had a sense early on that this was all an illusion and that it wasn't to be taken seriously. But when I started smoking weed at 10 years old, I was proof that it was all an illusion, because it allowed me to laugh at it all, you know. And then I think I was 11, Monty Python's Flying Circus came on PBS. And I thought, more proof that my tribe exists out there, and there are people who think the way I think, which is irreverent and funny, and to make fun of everything, because I had a suspicion, a sneaking suspicion, that this was all an illusion and that it wasn't to be taken serious. And I would try to, with even 5 years old, I would try to lean over to somebody and say, "Are you saying that the emperor is not wearing any clothes?" And they wouldn't the people I would speak to at 5 wouldn't say, yes, you're absolutely right. It's not wearing any clothes. And come over here and sit with me because we can get through this together. Now, I did have a little sense of that, though, with my sisters, my 3 sisters in that household. And we would laugh at everything. That was our way of dealing with our crazy parents' daytime nightmare, is that we would laugh. So that's how drugs helped alleviate some of the pressure of trying to play along with the ridiculousness that society wanted me to join in on.
But there's an interesting, if I read you correctly, there's an interesting, I don't know if contradiction is the right word, paradox, interesting interplay here, because it's all an illusion, but you also write about using the drugs to dissociate from the pain that existed beneath all of it.
Well, the pain felt real. The pain felt real, and it needed to be alleviated. There's a lot of pressure for us humans to join into, what's serious. I mean, if you look at the newspaper, there's so much attention put on sports. And you're like, why is there so much attention on sports? I'm not interested in that. Who decided that we're I mean, it could very easily well be, synthetic wigs versus human hair wigs and lace fronts and short wigs versus long wigs. It's like, okay, most people are not interested in that. I personally am interested in that. But it's absurd. Why so much on grown men throwing balls around? Who decided that? Well, the society decided that that's what, the men who were interested in that decided that's what's important. It's like, gee whiz, so much. Anyway, long story long, when I found something that helped, or people that helped me understand the absurdity of it all, that confirmed my suspicion that it is absolutely absurd. Usually those people were the people I found while smoking weed, They needed that respite, that sanctuary too. And that's where we found each other.
Tell me more about your parents.
They were just these country people who didn't understand how to navigate life, and they were faking it with the rest of us. My mother was a world-weary person. And I think she tried, by marrying my father and getting involved with him, she tried to join into what was expected of her. But it just didn't work. She didn't have the processing tools to deal with what was going on inside of her. And I suspect, she didn't talk about her childhood or her background very much, but I suspected that something horrible had happened to her as a little girl. Something hideous and unimaginable happened to her, which turned her world weary. So she married my father, who was very charismatic and laughed and all that, not very deep or not in touch with his emotional life, but seemed fun, but very superficial, my father. So it was doomed. It was doomed. These are country-ass people who never went deeper into introspection than what the Bible says, I found it was my role to lift them up and to share my own emotional depth with them so that they could, at least we can meet on a certain plane and go, there you are, So, but they didn't have that. In fact, I saw a psychic many, like almost 40 years ago who said, well, Ru, you and your father had shared past lives together. So when you appeared in this one together, you were like, oh my God, buddy, let's do it. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. And he couldn't see me. He could not see me. And I said, well, let me share my emotional life with you to remind you, to wake you up. Couldn't do it. So I spent a lifetime trying to share that and trying to shake him into recognition, but it just wasn't going to work. Same with my mother. My mother she was dark and there was a depression over her. And I would perform for her in the living room and she would laugh and then she would go back into that place. So that's what my parents were like.
it sounds like their inaccessibility in their different ways was really like the primordial wound for you. Am I overstating that?
No. But we were very different because I was very different from them because I had the ability to create magic. I had the ability to, I like the term, hit that Google Earth button and go, oh, okay, I see what's really going on here. I see how that happened. They did not have the ability to, as an alchemist, to change the pH balance in the room the way I have.
Where'd you get that from?
I think it's a gift, honestly. I think it is absolutely a gift. There are theories that maybe I had past lives that, that allowed me to do it. I think it's a gift, honestly. Some people have other gifts, My sister, I have two sisters, Renee and Renetta. They're twins. They were my world. They were my Zen masters as a kid. I remember Renetta, when I was maybe 5 or 4, took me in the backyard and had a brown paper bag filled with cookies. And she had a blanket, and she laid the blanket out in the backyard, opened the cookies, and we ate some. And she said, "Ru, this is a picnic." And I went, wow, magic, a little magic. And that was part of my introduction to being a magician and how to conjure a magical situation. To anyone else, it was just a blanket and a bag of cookies. But she, in that moment, taught me how to create magic.
It's just reminding me what you just said of another thing you wrote in the book. And so I'm just going to do this thing of reading it to you and seeing if you're okay talking about it on the other end. And it kind of, the reason why I'm making this leap is because I hear you talk about the magic of this picnic. It really kind of takes it back in my mind to seeing what's real. And if you're really paying attention, everything is magic, right? I mean, the fact that we're here having this conversation is miraculous. And most of the time we're just in autopilot. So anyway, you in this passage talk about a car crash and how being in a car crash can feel real. It feels like a moment that snaps you, quote, out of the illusion, the waking daydream that we all move through in the world that we've created. Everyone's born awake, sharp and conscious, and then as you get older, you go back to sleep. But moments like near-death experiences can wake us up, you say. Here's another quote: "Life can be bracing and difficult, even in all its magic. And when we taste its bitterness, we know that it is real, and so too are we." So again, no question per se, but I'd just love to hear you say more about those words, which I think are really fascinating.
Well, because we are magical beings or co-creators with whatever that thing is that created us, we can decide in any moment what is real. And that's pretty daunting because if glass half full, half empty, both choices are correct. But one choice will bring you joy and the other choice will bring you pain. Your decision. It's up to you. Life says, I'll be whatever you want me to be. And if you, like my mother, decides to focus on the darkness, what are you going to get? You're going to get the darkness. And I choose glass half full is my choice. Some days, if I'm out of balance, out of alignment, I may lean toward the other choice, but I do have the cognizant ability to change my trajectory throughout the day. I can reset my emotional reboot. I can do that. And that's magic. Those are the tricks we're talking about, And that's what the book is really about. It's about learning how to navigate this emotional, malleable consciousness throughout the day. It's easy for other people to look at your life and go, "Hun, I can see exactly the thing that you keep doing over and over again." But it's hard for me to see it. I've learned a few life hacks that allow me to see it, like as we were going to talk about meditation, which allows me to see myself and go, oh, right. I see what I keep doing. And then you can change that. Again, it's all magic.
I think I've asked you this question before, but I'm curious. What for you, when you say meditation, what are you describing?
I'm describing that moment in the morning. The first thing I do when I get out of bed is I stretch because I have to, and then I pray. I'm not religious, but I do pray, and I am thankful. And the act of prayer is a way for me to disarm my ego at the earliest moment of my waking, and to be grateful for, oh my God, this brilliant, beautiful, amazing life. Then I meditate, and I sit in the lotus position and focus on my breathing. And I go into many different techniques. I decide on what technique I'm going to do. This morning I focused on my earliest memory. Started with my earliest memory, and then I go sort of in time-lapse, fast motion to the next thing I remember, and then the next thing, up until this moment here. And it aligns me in a way, that one does. It aligns me in a way to be grateful of this experience that I've had. It puts me in this moment right here, because I've reenacted or remembered everything that brought me to this moment. And I focus on this moment. And in this moment, I hit the Google Earth button and go, oh my gosh, Ru. The thing that came up this morning was in 1991, I was on this tour of Italy, and I was with a bunch of people. And one morning I got up before everyone else, and I walked over to the Colosseum, and I was there. The sun was just peeking over the horizon, and I remember thinking that I had surpassed my parents intellectually. Now, truth is, I had surpassed my parents intellectually many years before that. Many years before that. But it occurred to me in that moment that no one who had been in my family line, my family tree, had ever looked at the Colosseum in Rome as the sun was coming up before. But that's what came to me. And again, I don't know what effect that recollection had on me, but that's what came up. And I guess what it really reminds me is that I am anointed. I'm the golden child. This is not my ego speaking. This is to remind me, is to be grateful and to understand what my role is here, and to not take it for granted. And I guess it's not even important for me to figure out what it means, but that's what came up in my morning meditation. And I have other techniques in it. One, which I learned from Eckhart Tolle, is imagine, when I do my meditation, imagine I'm dead. Imagine I'm no longer here. And again, that disarms the ego. And there's this vastness in that idea. It's really brilliant, actually. Yeah. So, yeah, that's what I mean when I say meditation.
And it all does seem to come back to this smashing of the Google Earth button to pierce the veil and provide some perspective and wake you up out of the habitual reflexive mode, default mode that most of us are lumbering around in.
Yeah.
When you said, remind me of what my role is, what do you think your role is?
My role is I am an extension of the power that created the universe, and it is to experience humanity, to get out there and touch it and feel it. You know, when I first got a computer, I was late to the laptop computer game. I think I got my first one in 1999 or something like that. My computer tutor said, Ru, when I come back next week, I want to see that you have effed this computer up. I want you to have gotten in here and dug around and effed it up. It says, when I come back, I can fix it. I can fix it'll be fine. But I need to know that you are getting in there and getting dirty and effing it up. And I love that because he did come back the next week and fix it. And there were all these I remember there were these bugs that on the surface, I'd put it in the trash and then it would just come back immediately and come in the trash. It's like, it's something deeper than that. It's something deeper. And he would come and he would fix it. And then I would the next week do it all over again. So my role as a co-creator I use the term God because that's the word we in our culture use for that which cannot be explained. We don't have words for it. It's bigger than our ridiculous vocabulary. So I'm a co-creator. And so my role is to get in there and F it up, kick the consciousness in the country breakfast. This is a family show. I'm going to say.
You can say whatever you want on the show. It's not a family show.
I'm going to kick the zeitgeist in the country breakfast. That's my role. And I have done it. I have done almost the impossible, which is funny to me. It's so funny. It's so great. I love it. It's everything that I loved about Monty Python and Andy Warhol and David Bowie and all of my heroes. I love it.
Do you see your role in the kicking the zeitgeist in the country breakfast? Do you see it as a service?
Oh, yes. Yes, because this is what whatever this thing is, this creator, whatever that thing is, it wants to experience humanity, good, bad. There's no judgment. There's no right or wrong. There is a moral right or wrong that I don't want to impede on another human's pleasure or their space or their time. But in my teachings and being a seeker, you have to contemplate the idea that what if there is no right or wrong? What if it's all good? Just like the Alan Watts thing. When we wake up, it's all going to be fixed. When my computer tutor comes back, he just, it's okay. It's all good. There's no right or wrong. It's all going to be fixed. It's all going to be fine because this is all temporary. This is all an illusion, this thing that we're in right here. It's all fine. Now, within that, of course, there is a moral compass, and I'm a kind person. I'm a person who is very conscious of your feelings and of the feelings of the people who are around me. But it is important. It is important for me to branch out and do things. And, I've done a lot of fun stuff. And that my role is to be of service to this gift, this magical gift I've been given. Many years, it wasn't until I got into drag that I realized I had a great pair of legs. I had no idea. But I wouldn't have known had I not, tried some new things, branch out, see what it's like being of service to this body, seeing what it's like to try things outside of what society expects or wants, whatever,
I think the service, in my opinion, for whatever that's worth, has gone beyond the providing of joy and excitement to your fans. I think it's also, and you talk about finding this for yourself in the book a lot, about finding your community, finding your people after having been not accepted in many ways, being called a sissy growing up, and then you finally find your people, you find the world of drag. You have given that to countless people, whether they're interested in drag or not, just the idea that it's okay to be whoever the hell you are.
Now, listen, this isn't, it's not just a selfless thing. My motivation is to go out and have some fun. I love to laugh. I love, sure. One of the great, extras from doing that is, it has brought other people some joy and given them some recognition. But don't get it twisted. I'm doing this solely to entertain myself. Starts there. Listen, if other people get something out of what I'm doing, I'm like, right on, buddy, right on. But I'm doing this for me. I'm doing this because I need to entertain myself. I want to have some fun. There's not enough fun going on anymore. When I was growing up, there were signs. You ride down the street, and there were signs that says cocktails, dancing, disco, dancing, and roller disco. There's none of that. People are looking at their phones, and they're doing this myopic dance with themselves. There's no community unless it's an online community or something. But we are not having fun. We are not having fun. I keep my roller skates in the trunk of my car, and I'll drive up to a parking garage at the very top floor where there's no roof, and open the car doors. And put a speaker out there and just have my own roller disco. And George has his pair, and we roller disco by ourselves. But where is the fun? Where is the fun? Where's the disco? I mean, disco, it challenged people to get in touch with what's going on inside of them, with their spirit. Because dancing around a fire, the disco lights that's the fire, and then dancing around a fire, the tribal spirit. We conjure the spirit when we dance around the fire. And what happens is people became afraid of that, afraid of their spirit, because, all the ancients, the ascended masters say, if you were able to be in this moment right now, the first thing you would recognize is how much pain you're in. And if you were to conjure that spirit right now, that spirit would let you know that you're in a lot of pain, and nobody wants to deal with that pain. So it's easier to be distracted with your phone in front of your face. But that's what happened to disco. Disco didn't die. People who couldn't dance or couldn't get in touch with their spirit shut it down. They shut it down. And we are right now in a place where the spirit is so shut down. It is so shut down. That's why this conversation we're having is so revolutionary, because, to wake people from their daytime nightmare is a revolutionary act. And it's going to take a lot. I thought COVID was going to do it. I thought the pandemic was going to shake the world the way that World War II shook the world into being present. But it will happen. It will happen. Unfortunately, it's going to hurt a lot. It's going to hurt a lot to wake everybody up.
This hurt that you're predicting, is that why I read that you're building a compound in Wyoming with your husband, George, who you referenced before? Is this what you're is it, when you talk about the hurt that's going to come, is that what you're kind of pointing at?
Probably, yeah. I mean, the scariest thing on this planet to me is ignorance. It's unconsciousness. And of course, when people are walking down the street, or God forbid, driving their car like this with the phone in front of their face, that's unconsciousness. Remember about 15 years ago, there were all these movies about zombies, and there still are. But those movies were a parable for where we are today. They were symbolic of this unconsciousness, that this, it's almost like a thought disease that has taken over the world, and it's really scary. There's no escaping it. We're all going to have to go through it together.
So the compound might provide you some distance and physical safety, but whatever tumult we endure, you can't really opt out.
No, you can't. We all did this together. We're not separate from one another. There's only one of us here. Our perception, if you hit that Google Earth button, you realize our ego makes us think that we're separate from one another, but we are not. We are one thing. We are one thing. And so that's why the revolution will come from within. It will start from within and it will reverberate through all of us. That's why the work that we do, with this podcast or with meditation or with learning to love ourselves is so important. On this book tour, I opened with telling everybody that I've put a picture of myself as a kid on my phone. This is me at 5 years old on my phone to remind myself of who it is I'm actually dealing with, whose sweet, kind heart I am looking after, who I'm caring for. And that small gesture on my phone is revolutionary because how I treat myself, my kid who lives inside of me, who's still there, is a direct reflection of how I treat other people in the world. I learned from my parents how to treat that kid, and it was terrible. Now I get the opportunity to reparent that kid and treat him with so much love and so much kindness to where it alleviates the pain that we feel in this moment, that I feel in this moment. I've learned how to process those feelings the way my parents, they didn't know how to do it. And, we talked about the drugs and alcohol. The drugs and alcohol put my feelings, my emotional life on hold until I had the wherewithal to learn how to deal with those feelings. And now I do. I've been in a 12-step program in August, it'll be 25 years I've been in this 12-step program. And through this, I learned how to process those feelings. And part of the processing those feelings are dealing with that kid who lives inside of me. And that is a revolution because me dealing with those feelings, that child inside of me, changes the pH balance of the entire world. Us even just talking about it right now, the people listening will be reminded that there is a kid inside of them. And over my life, I've tried to pawn this kid who lives inside of me off on other people, other things. Here, would you take care of my child? Would you please? Are you my daddy? Would you please take care of my child? Child doesn't want anybody else, only wants one person, and that person is you. And this is a revolution. This is revolutionary talk. This type of consciousness is the only thing that will change the trajectory of this world we're living in. The revolution is, it's not going to be televised. It's a revolution that is inside of you. This is where it begins.
The 10% Happier podcast is available ad-free over on our companion meditation app, which is also called 10% Happier. And you will get the episodes a week before everybody else does. Download the 10% Happier app right now to get started for free. I am very interested in self-love, and I 1,000,000% agree with you that it is not selfish. It's inexorably linked to how we treat other people. It is, however, one of these kind of cultural cliches. It's kind of knitted onto throw pillows and used as a hashtag or whatever. And so I'm curious, when it comes down to brass tacks for you, Ru, what are the practices that help you actually create a relationship with the 5-year-old who's on your home screen?
That's a great question. And we talked about it earlier. I do have a spiritual practice, and it starts very early. The first thing I do when I wake up, I stretch, I pray, and then I meditate. And that creates an equilibrium that allows me to be in touch, not just with my physical body, but the source, that thing that cannot be described. And it acknowledges that there is a thing and that my ego is not that thing. Now, listen, the ego doesn't go away. It's always there. My darkness, my dark passenger, it's always there. It's always there. But in that spiritual practice, I'm allowed to have an even playing field. That my dark passenger never goes away. But what I can do is I can fortify and strengthen the other side of it, my spiritual life, to remind me of who I really am. And who I really am is an extension of the power that created the whole universe. So that alone, that one thing, having a spiritual practice and reminding myself, yourself, that that is real, that's where the revolution begins. And then it transfers into in how you walk and integrate in this world. It seems like a small thing, but it is huge. And I think I talked about this earlier. The fact that there is no dancing, that there isn't a disco on every corner. I know we laugh at that, because disco is such a bad rap, but it is huge. Huge. I was just driving the other day, and there's, these beautiful churches all over the city with these great real estate. That should be a disco. That should be a friggin' disco where people can, a daytime disco. Gramps here, I'm in bed by 8:30. I want to go to a disco at 11 o'clock in the daytime and, have lunch there. Maybe there are smoothies there. Maybe they have lockers, but it would be no phones allowed. And I think you'd have to be over 40 to get a membership at this disco. And we would dance and sweat. I sweat like a pig when I dance. I'm soaking wet. So I would have, some, it's just like a gym where I'd have my disco clothes in a locker, and then I'd take a shower and clean up and go. And I'm back home maybe by 2 o'clock, or maybe you could go after work, skip traffic, and then when traffic is over, because the disco would close at like 9 o'clock. Do you dance, Dan? Can you dance? Do you know?
This is actually a sore subject, but it's something I've been thinking about a lot. I will sometimes dance with my son, who's 9, but I'm very self-conscious, and is one of these things that I want to say I'm self-critical about, but not in a way that I'm like self-lacerating or hating myself for. But it's an area of growth that I'm aware of, that I'm very interested in. And I really agree with, I think what you're talking about is a business model that somebody should pursue, because I think there are a lot of takers.
Yeah, listen, there's no bad dancing. It is unlocking the spirit, the child. It's unlocking that and not judging it, because that judgment you're talking about is a way that we were taught to judge that child who lives inside of you. There's no bad way of dancing. It is you access the spirit. You are calling up the spirit. You don't judge the spirit. The spirit is what it is. It's a part of you. So that is a place to start working on this area of releasing the judgment of the dance. I mean, we are all dancing anyway. This life is a dance. By the way, I actually can dance. I was in 9th grade. I won Best Afro, and I won Best Dancer at my junior high school. I was the best dancer, and I did have the best afro, but I won that prize because I was hanging out with the right people. It was, everything is political, right? So I was hanging out with the right people. That is why I nabbed that.
How consistent are you? You mentioned roller dancing, that you and George keep your skates in your cars. How consistent are you about dancing or roller skating as like I'm going to use the word practice?
Well, as often as it comes out, I work. I like to work. I'm always busy with work. But even at the studio, we're about to go into season 17 of our television show. I will bring my roller skates to the soundstage, and sometimes there's an empty stage there, and I will use them there. How consistent? As often as I possibly can. Now, I am an adult, and I do have to work. There's a mortgage I have to pay. So as often as I can. It's not often enough, I'll tell you that. We have a disco at our house, these huge speakers. I don't dance enough. If I could, I would dance every single day. I don't dance enough, you know. But if you're ever here in Los Angeles, I'm going to put those speakers on. And what's your go-to song? Do you remember, Dan, the first unit of music that you ever owned? I had a 45 of the Spinners. Could It Be I'm Falling in Love was the first record that I owned. Do you remember the first unit of music that you possessed?
The song that's coming to mind that I remember putting on by myself all the time, I don't know if I bought the record or not, but it's the first song on Fleetwood Mac, Fleetwood Mac record Rumors, and it comes on with that twangy guitar, ding, 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 and I remember dancing in front of the speakers. Secondhand News. Yes.
Yeah.
Secondhand News.
Wow.
That I have I still get a little choked up when I hear that song. It reminds me of my parents.
Oh, see, it's conjuring the spirit. It conjures the spirit that you carry with you. And you cannot ignore that. Because again, it's the child in you. And that is the conduit. That's the channel to which all of us can find sanctuary and spirit and peace, honestly, because we have so much unrest in this, not only this country, but in the world right now. And it's because we have become unconscious, and unconscious out of survival, because the pain of our childhood, of what came before, and the inability to process feelings has led us to this cavern of, shut down, this sort of tomb of unpenetrable feelings. That's why the tears come immediately when we think of these things, when we get in touch. So many of us have that same story. We're afraid of the tears. We're afraid of the emotions. We're afraid of the spirit. But don't be. Dance, sing, dance, skate, get in touch with it.
I asked before this tributary of the conversation began because I asked about, what do you actually do to practice self-love? And you reminded us of your morning routine, but it sounds like there's way more to it. It seems like you have antenna up for the type of fun that the 5-year-old Rue might have enjoyed. And you're looking for opportunities to sing, dance, skate. You also mentioned 12-step program and sobriety. That's part of this. I would imagine. Mm-hmm. I'm guessing, but you haven't confirmed this, that therapy may also be part of this.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. All of those things. And listen, all roads lead to the same place. The things that you named, they're not very different from one another. As a seeker, all roads lead to the exact same place. Whether you follow Krishna or Jesus or Buddha, all roads lead to the same place, which is that child that lives inside of you. And the 12-step programs, therapy, it all goes. And when I first got into therapy, it all goes to the same place. When I first got into therapy, all roads led to me at 5 or 6 years old, 7 years old, waiting for my father to pick me up on the front porch for his weekend with the kids. And he would not show up. And many, many years of therapy. I've had the same therapist for 25 years. All roads led to the same place, which allowed me to, as a detective, have a real conversation with that 5-year-old and say, hey, you know what? With X-ray eyes, with hitting that Google Earth button, it wasn't personal. I wanted to make it personal because I'd imbued my father with the same emotional consciousness that I have. If I were to leave a 5-year-old waiting on the porch for me, I'd be very conscious of it. And I would have done it, I guess, on purpose. I don't have it in me to do that. But the only thing I could come up with if I'd imbued him with my emotional consciousness was that he had done it on purpose. So I took it personally. I thought, how could he be so cruel to me? How could he be so cruel? He couldn't be present because of his own pain. And so I was able to take that information over many, many years and not take it personally and see him for who he was. And it changed everything in my life when I was able to accept that information. Now, here's the other part of that, is that some people have created an identity around that victimhood. And some people would not be willing to let go of that identity created around that victimhood. I was fortunate enough to be able to let that go, let the identity I had created as a victim of my father's hurt. I was able to let that go. And that enabled me to move so much further. I alleviated all of the weight and the pain and the baggage of that. It took up so much space. I was able to alleviate that. Now, the question for all of you out there is, are you willing to let go of the identity you've created from childhood? Because that's the real work. That's where the real work comes in. Because once you hit that Google Earth button and you go, oh, I didn't see this part over here. Oh, I see the whole landscape. And that actually, that hurt I felt had nothing to do with me, you know? So finding that joy, finding that happiness starts with alleviating some of the, you have to clear this, alleviating some of the baggage, all of the baggage, actually. You have to clear a space in your consciousness for a new way of seeing yourself. You have to clear a space, clear all of that out. The question becomes, are you willing to clear out the baggage that you created an identity around? That's the hard part.
It's a delicate dance because you want to have a relationship with the 5-year-old you, but you don't want to be so tied up in building an identity around all of the biographical details of said 5-year-old.
Yeah, no, well, the 5-year-old, you have to have a frank, honest, trustful conversation with them and bring that 5-year-old up to speed. You know, they say when you pick up drugs and using, your emotional life ends right then. So my emotional evolution ended at 10. So when I stopped using, I was able to bring that 10-year-old up to speed with what's happening now. So yes, it is about having a conversation and bringing that child up to speed and saying, honey, that wasn't your fault. That was not your fault. And I'm going to tell you why. And you can trust me, the adult me, to take care of you. Yes, I did put you in terrible situations, but I'm going to make up for it now. And that kid knows when you're lying. That kid knows when you're full of BS. And that's where the work comes in. You know, I there were cars of strangers I've gotten into, and, you know, up in the club, you know, someone would say, here, open your mouth. And I say, what was that? That child is still witnessing all of the indignities and nastiness that you have allowed in relationships, in how you see yourself. All of those things, they matter. It all matters. But today, in this moment, you have the opportunity to change it today. You are a magician. You are a co-creator. Today, it can change just like that.
This self-talk that you're modeling here, the way you're talking to your 5-year-old, are you aware that there's actually quite a significant body of research that shows that talking to yourself in specific ways can be very helpful, or did you just come upon this on your own?
If you hit that Google Earth button, it's very easy to recognize where the crime happened, and especially, you know, even in meditation, the scene of the crime you become very aware of where it happened and how it all started. Yes, the research, sure. No, it's not rocket science. I mean, I meet a lot of people who have traveled the world, and usually what I see, I see each adult as their 7-year-old school picture, with the thick glasses and the screwed up teeth, the googly eyes. And I go, oh, baby, oh my gosh. And I have compassion for them, and I can see them, and I could see whatever they're projecting outward, whether it's nasty or angry or whatever. I could go, oh, I see you. And I see what happened to you. I can see what happened. I can feel what happened. And I can have compassion for them because of that. But the research, sure. You say there's research on it. Yeah. All roads lead. It's not rocket science, Daniel.
It's not rocket science. But for me, it was a huge revelation that I didn't have to rely on what I thought was keeping me safe was, like an inner drill sergeant, quite harsh, that actually I could be super deliberate the way you just demonstrated in talking to myself. It's been massively helpful. And so maybe I'm just a dum-dum, but it, and obviously that's facetious self-talk, but it landed to me as a major revelation, rocket science or not.
Yeah. I firmly kept one foot planted in the belief that the emperor is not wearing any clothes, that the emperor's new clothes don't exist. And one, it's like a duality, one where I can smile and go, yeah, sure. The emperor's clothes are great, So I had both going on at the same time. And then with my tribe, when I found my tribe of, they could support this idea that, yes, this is an illusion. This is all an illusion. I remember the first time I dropped acid, it was confirmation that indeed this is all an illusion. And it was great. So I held on to that. I held on to that belief and that the consciousness of, so all of that.
Seeing that it's an illusion, but also having a moral code. This is such an interesting, you use this term, ascended masters, the spiritual titans, the great thinkers of over the ages have pointed to this. The T.S. Eliot talking about learning to care and not to care at the same time, that seeing that everything's an illusion, but it also matters. Being sensitive to the hurt of your inner 5-year-old and everybody you meet out in the world, every grown-up you meet out in the world, being in touch with their inner 7-year-old, at the same time seeing that it's all an illusion, it's all a performance. And as your high school teacher said, don't take life so fucking seriously, which is a thing you write about in the book. This walking of the line, that in and of itself is an interesting dance.
It is and it isn't. This world is filled with polar opposites that coexist. Night, day, black, white, all of those things. They can absolutely coexist and be truthful simultaneously. And that's where the balance, that's where the meditation and finding that equilibrium early in the morning, that spiritual practice, allows you to recognize both and to know that both are true. Half full, half empty. Both are true. It's a fine dance. That's why being conscious in this moment is the most important thing you can do, because that allows you to walk that fine line and to recognize both polar opposites at the same time.
I'm curious, did you ever make peace, face to face with your parents?
I got sober when I was 39 and gotten lots of therapy, lots of that. And I stepped away from show business for about 4 years. And in that time, I was able to recalibrate my outlook on life. I had spent so much of my first, 39 years trying to get his attention. And in fact, my motivation in show business had so much to do with getting his attention. And in those 4 years that I stepped away from show business and focused on my sobriety and therapy and all that stuff, it shifted. I shifted my focus from getting his attention to what motivates me. And what motivates me are colors and music and laughter and joy and dancing and shapes and texture. And that it shifted everything. So I didn't have to go and face him and talk to him about it. You know, there's a great book by Dr. Susan Forward called Toxic Parents, I read many years ago, where she runs through a process of reconciling a relationship with a parent, whether they're alive or not. And this process, it's all with you, writing letters and really, and having a conversation with the child that lives inside of you. So you can do this without having to confront your parents. In fact, most parents would just get defensive and they wouldn't be able to understand what you're really talking about. And then with my mother, I really liked her a lot. She was damaged and mean, but I really liked her a lot and I loved her. Yeah, there wasn't as much reconciliation with her. I understood her. I understood the pain. She was really damaged.
Are they both? I know your mom has passed.
They went on to Paris many years ago. My mother left for Paris, I think 34 years ago. I don't remember, something like that. And then my father, it's interesting because once I changed my relationship to, and all of that, and once I got through all of that, there was no emotional attachment. I don't even remember when he died. I never cried. And let me just backtrack because recently I've been really focusing on hero worship. And so over the years, I've had these idols who I've placed here, and I've had to re-examine my relationship to my idols, who I've all met, had dinner with, all that kind of stuff. And the process of taking these people off of this pedestal and being okay with myself, being self-propelling. Like, you know, how a rocket needs a fuselage to take it to a certain place, and then the fuselage breaks off and the rocket is on its own. This is an interesting concept. And anyway, with my father, once I was able to take him off of that thing, I was self-propelling, and I had to figure out what propels me forward. And it's those things I listed: joy and love and colors and dancing and all of those things. You know, laughter. You know, laughter is my favorite thing on this planet so far. In my discovery as the boy who fell to earth, I have found that the most valuable thing is, number one, laughter. Number two, kindness. Number three, a fat ass.
I didn't see that coming. Why is a fat ass so important?
I think you know, Danny.
All right, fair enough. Fair enough. Not to get us back onto more serious ground, but to get us back on slightly more serious ground. I am very interested in the subject of motivation, and you've brought it up. And you talked about how once you were able to separate yourself from the fuselage of being motivated by living up to your idols or impressing your dad, you had to figure out what intrinsically motivated you, and love and colors and joy and fun and laughter and fat asses all fit into there. What about money? You mentioned before, I've got a mortgage to pay. I think that was probably semi-facetious, but does money ever corrupt your motivation? How do you balance that?
You know, I've got to tell you, honestly, I grew up, we were on welfare. I got to tell you, the truth is I have always been rich. And I know it sounds so stupid. We didn't have, I didn't grow up with money. My parents, my mother, we were on commodity cheese. A certain generation of people know what that is. It was government supplement. The truth of the matter is, I've always been rich. And I've always been rich because I always knew how to create magic. I always had books. Books were so important to me. Books, television. I could recognize magic. Even when I was 28 years old and my Saturn returned and I was sleeping on my baby sister's couch here in LA, not a dime to my name, I was still rich because I had the ability, and still do, to see the beauty and to create the magic. I've always felt like I had angels around me. Even those times when I got into cars with strangers or, put some pill in my mouth that I had no idea what it was, somehow I have been looked after. And even if, everything went away, I have no doubt that I would be somehow taken care of because of the magic and the magic of imagination, of books, of recognizing the gifts that this life has. That really is, because I know billionaires who have nothing. They have nothing because they have no joy. They have no imagination. I know people who have literally billions of dollars who don't know how to create a magical situation, and I can create a magical situation with no money. Laughter is my favorite thing. I don't know if I've tried to get you to play Dirty Charades. I probably did when we were together. Dirty Charades, it's basically regular charades, but you just change one word and you cannot change syllables. I'm not going to say anything nasty here, but Dirty Charades is, you use words like poop, like my sister and the cookies in the backyard. I can create magic, and it doesn't take money at all. Am I motivated by money? I do. I want to get paid. That's for sure. And I do love to work. I love to work, but I like to work because I get to work with my friends. Would I take a cut and pay? Hell no. Hell no. But I do love it. Let me see. I'm going to try to. I have a list of words.
You can be as dirty as you want, just to be clear.
I'm not going to, because I know that there are Christian children who listen to this show. Words like sperm or poop, turd. That's not bad. Butt plug. Okay. But see, so here, let me give you an example of some of my favorite dirty charades. And I'm not going to get too dirty for the Christians who are watching. Movie, 3 men and a little cooter. Baby is a little baby. Right. Cooter sings the blues. Rosemary's Cooter. 12 Years a Slut. It's a movie. Some of these are very dirty, and I'm not going to go there. TV show, The Mary Tyler Whore Show. Here's one. This is my last one. Okay.
Don't make it your last one. I want more.
Movie, Sidney Poitier, To Sir with Jizz. One of my favorite movies, Starship Poopers.
I like that. I have a 9-year-old son who would like that.
Okay, I'm going to do one dirty one, okay?
Okay.
If you're a Christian child, please close your ears. Musical, Annie, Get Your Cum.
Do you just keep a notes you have a notes file? I
have a notes file where I'm watching Jeopardy, or I hear a title and I'll see a book title and I'll go, oh, okay, I'm going to allow you to come up with one. I saw a book, The Red Badge of Courage. Can you guess how I would turn the Red Badge of Courage into a dirty charades?
Well, see, I am eminently cancelable, unlike you. you, I think. So I'm not even
really?
going to hazard a guess.
I get it. And you're right. And, you have to take care of yourself. Well, the red badge of courage would turn into the red vag of courage. This conjures up that child who lives inside of you, that goofy child who, and it's irreverent. And it is my favorite thing to do. Everybody who knows me on set, we have to be very careful on set because people want to sue you for saying vag. But I love to conjure up that kid who lives inside of me who is firmly planted in the irreverent, the goofy, the funny. And it's so freeing because it's like a mantra to remind yourself, don't take life too effing seriously. There are things to take seriously, like kindness and sweetness and laughter and fat asses, but everything else is up for discussion.
I take your point very well. And this is probably the last podcast that anybody will ever let me do, so I'm enjoying it. I just want to say that. Ru, it's so much fun to talk to you. Is there a place you were hoping we would go in this conversation that we haven't yet gone? Anything you were hoping to say that we haven't touched on?
No, I trust the process. I was on this book tour. I did 14 cities, and I would go out every night and do an hour of talking just like this. And I had an outline of where I wanted to go. I wanted to talk about that child who lives inside of me, which is a revolutionary concept. And then I would just let it flow, and I would allow the process, the process to just guide me. And I believe in that. I believe that what we have said today in this podcast is very important, and it is what the gods, the angels, the listeners wanted us to talk about. And it's beautiful. In fact, when I go on stage, I would tell myself, okay, Ru, Mama's living room. You're going out in front of Mama in the living room, and everything you do, she will love. She will love everything. She would laugh, laugh, laugh. And that's how I go on stage every time I go on stage is I talk to that kid who may be nervous or anxious or whatever, and I say, you're fine, honey. Mama loves you no matter what. So you go out there and you do your thing. That is brilliant because once you clear a space, you clear out the anxious or the insecurity, you clear all this stuff out, you have so much more bandwidth, so much more capability to receive the source, receive the blessing, that your life will be so much more fulfilled when you take out all that crap. In my 20s, I used to be late to places, and I had plenty of time. I just procrastinated and it was late. And when I really put the X-ray eyes on that situation, and this happened in sobriety, when I was able to dissect and hit that Google Earth button, I realized I was addicted to rushing to the place, going, oh, shoot, oh, driving, oh, I'm going to make this light. Oh, shoot, oh my God, I almost have time. I realized I was addicted to that part of being late. And once I was willing to let go of my addiction to the rush of trying to get somewhere, I would arrive 15 minutes early. So on the surface, it was an issue with procrastination. But when you really got an X-ray eyes and you really look at the situation, it was something else. Just like with my computer, I would put something in the garbage and then the issue was still there. And it's like, what? It's deeper. So when you look at a situation with X-ray eyes, you're able to really figure out what's happening.
There's so much going on in the world and in our own mind. But if we look for the hidden meaning, it may be hard, but it will be liberating.
And there are strings attached to that hidden meaning. The payoff. Judge Judy says, look, follow the money. For me, in the late situation, the money was the rush I got from rushing. And for my victimhood, the rush I got, I was able to justify a lot of bad behavior because, in my mind, I felt the world had done me wrong. I'm an outsider, so I can do whatever I want because the world has done me wrong. The payoff was the justification of bad behavior.
I have this little tagline I use sometimes. The view is so much better when you pull your head out of your ass. And that's just what's coming to mind when I hear you talk about all of this.
Yeah. I mean, if you've ever been ill in the hospital or something, or if your back is out, you really understand how blessed you are. It's change in perception. That's a miracle. A miracle is a change in perception.
Yeah.
Get your head out of your ass and you can actually see.
I was just going to say thank you for coming on. It's always such a pleasure to talk to you. Really, I say that. That's not perfunctory. I genuinely mean it. Thank you.
Yeah, very kind. Thank you for having me.